Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
We hear variations of this story from time to time where somebody owns a piece of property and a big developer comes along and goes, I'd like to buy your property from you. No, thanks. Well, we've got lots of money and we really need your property. No, thanks. I like my property. And so you hear about these David versus Goliath battles from time to time. And I've heard a few in the last couple of years, including the people who own the house that's near the golf course where they play the Masters. And the golf course would like to buy their property, and they're like, nah, we like the property. And a couple famous examples where a developer was forced to build around somebody, including building around a house, because the person in the house wouldn't move and didn't want to sell. So here's a story. I want to be left alone. A 93-year-old Hilton Head Island woman is in a legal battle over her family's land. And Nicole Terry Ellis wrote this for CNN. The woman and her late husband moved from New York to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, nearly 30 years ago to seek peace and relaxation. The 1.8-acre parcel of land had been in her husband's family since the Civil War, and it was there they carried out family traditions such as Thanksgiving and Christmas gatherings. They planted trees and bushes and even built a porch. Now she's 93 years old. She acquired the deed to the land after her husband died. Her granddaughter is the one talking about this all to the news. And now her beloved land is at the center of a legal battle with a property developer looking to build a residential development next door. According to local newspaper, Georgia-based investment company is planning to construct 147 homes. They want to build 147 homes right around where her property is. Now, that company had previously showed up at the grandmother's house and offered to buy the land for $30,000, which she declined. Now, I don't know if $30,000 is a fair price for that land. It could be. It might not be. I don't know. The developer then filed a lawsuit in February of this year against the woman, claiming that her satellite dish, a shed, and a screened-in porch were encroaching on the developer's land and delaying the construction of new homes. The lawsuit asked for the removal of the structures and sought just and adequate compensation for its loss of the use and enjoyment of their property and expenses related to delays in development. So they have now removed the shed and the satellite dish, and they were preparing to downsize the screen porch when the landowner decided to file her own counterclaim. And they told CNN, my porch is not on their property. So the counterclaim was filed in April and amended in June, and it accused the developers of a constant barrage of tactics of intimidation, harassment, trespass, including this litigation, in an effort to force her to sell her property. The counterclaim also accused the developer of trashing the property, going onto her property, cutting brush and shrubs, littering, causing dirt and debris to cover her automobile, house, and contents. Claims said that the woman who owns the house had been deprived of the peaceful enjoyment of her property. Meanwhile, the developers filed an answer to the counterclaim, denying all those allegations. The developer also denied trying to acquire the land and being told it wasn't for sale. The landowner told CNN she's concerned the developer is using well-known pressure tactics to get her to give in and sell the land. And so it's kind of strange that they claim that they never wanted to buy the land, but who knows? Attorneys for the developers have not returned CNN's request for comments on this. But the woman who owns the land that's been in her family for all those years says, I want to be left alone. I want to live on my property like I have always, in peace and quiet. So a civil rights attorney who is advocating for the woman said their land is so valuable. They, that is developers, have been doing this for years. This is not new. The woman says she hopes that her fight will inspire other landowners in Hilton Head Island to defend their property. They have never been able to fight back, referring to what's been going on in the past. But once they see somebody doing it, they'll know that they have the right to do what I did. Now, this battle has gathered attention from celebrities, including NBA star Kyrie Irving, who donated $40,000 to the GoFundMe created to help this woman with her legal fees. Filmmaker Tyler Perry also shared her story on Instagram saying, please tell where to show up and what you need to help you fight. So It's one of those things, and even if she keeps her land and the developer does not buy it and the developer says, fine, I'll leave you alone, that woman's now going to have this development going in right around her property, and that's going to cause a lot of noise and construction activity, dust and things of that nature. But this kind of stuff happens, unfortunately. I'm talking about just progress and development and so on. And we all have experienced this before, where you go back to where you grew up and you see that a lot of the smaller buildings are gone and they've been replaced by bigger buildings or parking lots. And, the street that my parents owned a home on, where I grew up, my parents' home is one of the last homes on the street that still exists from the 1960s. Because what happened was, the street when I was growing up on it was big yards and small houses. And over the years, people have come along and said, what would be really cool right here? A Bigfoot house, a big monstrous house right out to the edges of the property lines and as high as it can go. And I don't care if it blots the sun from the sky for my neighbors. I want to have this huge monstrosity on my property. So developers have gone down the street and all the streets nearby, buying up the homes one at a time. You level the house and you bring in this Bigfoot. And so I've visited recently, and there are only 2 or 3 homes left on the entire street that have not been knocked down or replaced by a Bigfoot home, so they call them. And it's strange. Now, of course, these things happen, and I didn't own any of this property, so it's not up to me to say, well, you can't do that. But it is one of those things that you just watch as I guess as you get older about how things change. And I wouldn't be surprised if 50 years from now they're knocking down the Bigfoots and putting in little ranches because they're more quaint. I don't know, but it is kind of strange. So this woman, this property has been in her family or her husband's family since the Civil War. And she says they approached her and said, we'd like to buy it from you. And she said no. And then she said that's when the trouble began. Now, of course, they deny that, and they say, oh no, we're just trying to build a thing here. And we noticed that her shed was on our property. And, when they go to put in a subdivision or a big development like this, I assure you that one of the first things that happens is surveyors come out and mark the property lines. If they did the job properly, she should be able to go out and see where they marked it and then see if she agrees with where they marked it. And if she thinks where they marked it is wrong, she can, of course, hire her own surveyor, which unfortunately is not cheap, and have a surveyor come in and mark her property lines. And, of course, if there's a dispute where she thinks the line is here and they think the line is here, that may have to get litigated, which is unfortunate. But, there are answers to these questions. And so I hope that she's okay in the terms of she's not going to sell to them, and she wants to stay there. And so at least nobody's gone to the powers that be and said, gee, we need her property to be condemned so we can put in our own development here. Because that's happened also. But at least here they're saying, oh, no. She can stay there as long as she stays in her side of the property line. But I remember there have been famous stories, including the one where there is a building built around a house where this person had a home, and the developer bought the property on this side, the property on this side, and the property behind it, and then said, we want to buy your property. They go, no, don't want to sell. They said, you understand we're going to put up a building, and your house is in essence going to be at the ground floor, and there's going to be walls both sides and behind you going up like this. And the homeowner goes, no, I like my house. I'm going to stay. And I remember reading about the litigation that arose there. And they tried to make it unpleasant for that homeowner in the hopes that maybe the homeowner would change his or her mind in time to where the developer might be able to acquire that and then modify their plans to have a straight across front on the building. Didn't happen. So I'm rooting for the 93-year-old Hilton Head Island woman who's in a legal battle over her family's land. She says, I want to be left alone. And by the way, there's a famous saying who says that one of the great rights that we have as an American is just the right to be let alone. And he used the word let as opposed to left, but it's the same thing. Leave me alone. Just if I want to go back in the woods and live in a shack, I can do that. If I want to go into my house and put up a sign on the door that says, no solicitation, and draw the curtains and just hang out in there, I can do that too. So this woman and her kids and grandkids want to enjoy that home. It's been in the family for quite some time. A lot of people sent me the story. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The bicycle is a curious vehicle. Its passenger is its engine.